Lawtorial.
Hi guys, welcome to Lawtorials and this introduction to federal subject matter jurisdiction. So what is federal subject matter jurisdiction, you may ask? It's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's whether the federal court has jurisdiction over a subject matter of a case or claim. So one thing to note is that it relates to the federal court, which is why it's called federal subject matter jurisdiction. So when you're looking at exams and you're looking at questions and it's in the federal court, that's one of the first things that should be, flagged in your minds. That's one of the things that you should be looking out for, okay? So it's something that literally allows the case to be heard before the federal court. So ways that cases can be brought under federal subject matter jurisdiction is through federal questions. So that's whether it's when it's related to federal law, a treaty, or the US Constitution, or through diversity jurisdiction, where there's diversity between the parties. But we will go into these deeper with the elements in separate videos, so don't worry about that. Well, worry about it because it's important to know. But this is just the introduction, just to give you an overview, because you might get thrown off by the long name, federal subject matter jurisdiction. It sounds scary. It used to sound scary to me. So I just want you to understand as an overview what it is, what it means, what it applies to. And another way that cases can be brought into federal court under federal subject matter jurisdiction is through supplemental jurisdiction. So we'll go into these elements deeper in separate videos because this is just an overview. But one thing I want you to know is that when you're doing exams, practice exams, looking at questions, what you need to be looking for is whether it's a federal court. And unfortunately, they don't just ask you outright, okay, so what is federal subject matter jurisdiction? And you get to just list all the definitions and elements. It's not that simple, unfortunately. You will, in most cases, get scenarios and it will either be in federal court. So you need to be looking out for, like the actual subject matter of the claim that's being brought, or it might be to do with parties if it's diversity. And so looking at parties from state A versus state B, and it can get a bit more complex. So we will go deeper into that under each video for the specific elements of federal subject matter jurisdiction. But that is basically what you need to know about it. Another thing to note is that the federal court, like I said, is the federal court. So there are only a certain amount of cases that can be brought before it. They don't want everything being thrown in. So it has to fall under one of these elements of federal subject matter jurisdiction in order for the court to be able to hear it. So that's basically the whole reasoning behind it. And hopefully that understanding will help you really know how to approach these exam questions, these MBEs and MEEs when it comes to discussing whether it applies in the scenario. So another thing to note also is that it can be brought up as a defense at any point throughout the case, whether it's at the very beginning or at the very end at the appeal stage. If a party notices and it's like, hey, there's no federal subject matter jurisdiction, the court will have to, it's a way to basically pull that case out of federal court if they don't have that federal subject matter jurisdiction. So we'll talk about things like removal again in another video entirely, but just as an overview, that's what federal subject matter jurisdiction is. I know it's a bit long and it can be a bit of a tongue twister, at least it is for me, but that's the essence of it. So understand that when you're looking at questions, if you see it's in federal court, subject matter jurisdiction is one of the first things that you need to be thinking about before you obviously dive deeper into the fact pattern and see if that's actually the issue at hand. So that's federal subject matter jurisdiction. In the next videos, we'll break down the elements even further, and then also I'll show you how to kind of spot in a question, in a fact pattern, when they might be asking about that specific element of federal subject matter jurisdiction.
Lawtorial.